Today we're going to look at how to make a line plot. We've already talked about different ways that you can interpret or read a line plot. Now we're going to actually make some. So let's look at what we have in front of us. Here we have our situation. Charlie surveyed his friends to learn how much they had grown in the past year. We have our line, and our line is divided into different parts. It goes from 0 to 2. And we have our data. These are the most important parts. We can't put X's on our line plot if we don't have data. So, all good line plots have to have a title. So what do we want to name this line plot? I'm going to name it Inches Grown in the Past Year. Okay, so I know that I'm measuring in inches. And then what does each X represent? Each of my X's, as I label them up on my line plot, are going to represent a friend. So every X equals a friend. Now I take my data from my chart and I plot it along my line. Now I notice that there are some fractions in here, but I don't see any fractions labeled on my line. Where are they going to go? Ah! The little tick marks in between 0 and 1 and 2 are going to be my fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and label them because it's easier for me to see it if I have a number there. So I know that right in between 0 and 1 is going to be 1/2. That's always the easiest for me to do. And then in between 0 and 1/2 is 1/4. Now I can fill in the rest of them. 1 and 1/4, 1 and 1/2, 1 and 3/4. Okay, now I go through and put my little X's. So friend number 1 was 1/4 inches. This is where it can be confusing because I have a 1 on my line, but I'm not marking the number of friends. My line does not go all the way to 11. Each of my X's is a friend. So I'm going to have 11 X's by the time I'm finished. And I'm going to put those X's on top of the inches they represent. So my first X is going to go on top of 1/4. Now to help me remember that I've finished with that one, I'm going to put a little check mark. My second X is going to go on top of 1/2. And a little check mark. And I'm going to continue doing this for all 11 friends. Okay, I've labeled my X's. Now I did run into a couple of tricky ones that I want to show you. My third X was 4/4. 4/4. If I cut something into 4 pieces and I shade all 4 of those in, I know that that is the same as 1 whole. So that X went on top of 1. Another tricky one that I found was 5/4. If I know that 4/4 is 1 whole, 5/4 would have an extra. So that would be the same as 1 and 1/4. Now to check myself, I'm going to make sure that I have 11 X's because I put my data down for 11 friends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Awesome! That's it. Now I have my line plot. So what if our data looks like this instead? We don't have our nice chart that we had on our first one. Instead, the data is just lined up at the top. Well, we're going to work at it the exact same way. So I'm going to begin by making a title. I know that students measured the lengths of the leaves they collected in inches. So, lengths of leaves measured. I know that I'm measuring in inches. And each X is going to represent a leaf because that is what is being measured. Okay, here my measurements go from 3 to 5. And there are a lot of little tick marks in between. So to figure out what I'm measuring in, I'm going to see how many pieces one of my holes is broken into. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's broken into 8 pieces. So my denominator is going to be eighths. Now if I look carefully, that one right in the middle is a little longer. I know that is going to be my my half. Right in between 3 and 4 is 3 and a half. Right in between 3 and 3 and a half is 3 and 1/4. 3 and 3/4. And then in between those are my eighths. I'm not going to label those because I'll run out of room. Now let's do 4 to 5. Right in between is 4 and 1/2. Then I have 4 and 1/4 and 4 and 3/4. Okay, now let's plot my data. I'm going to start at the beginning. 3 and 1/2. 3 and 1/2. Check. I got that one. 3 and 5/8. I know it's going to be in between 3 and 4, so now I'm going to count my eighths. 3 and 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. 3 and 5/8. 4. That one's easy. And I'm going to continue along and plot all of these X's. All right, I finished marking my X's. Now, let's check to make sure I got all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I have 19 numbers up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. All right, I have it finished. The last ones you're going to see look slightly different. The only thing that is different between this and what we just did is that there is no line. So if you were to make your line plot, you would have to draw a line for it. But to answer these questions, you don't have to make a line plot. You can decide to make a line plot to graph the data, but you can also answer the questions without a line plot. So let's look at it. Which whole numbers, so we're looking at just the whole numbers, should go at the ends of my number line? So if I were to make that line plot, what would be my starting number down here and my ending number? Let's see. What's the smallest number I have? Oh, I see a 1. Is there anything smaller than 1? Nope. So my smallest number would be a 1. What's the biggest number I have on my list? There's 2.5. Oh, 3.5. 3.5's the winner. Well, I have to have a whole number. So what whole number would come right after, just after 3.5? It would be 4. So my whole numbers would go from 1 to 4. Into how many fractional parts should you divide each whole? Well, for this, I'm going to look at what my largest denominator is. That tells me how many pieces. That's the smallest piece that I have to deal with. I see a fourth and a half, and these are fourths and half and fourth. Let's go with fourths. So I'm going to divide each of my pieces into fourths. All right.